Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Silibaziso Mupereki, and on this channel I cover everything to do with university life, nursing school, and international student experiences. And if this would be something that you'd be interested in, definitely hit the subscribe button and join the family. So the first step is preparing for class, and how you do this is by reading the information of the lecture that you're going to be doing the next day. And usually your lectures will give you a schedule of what is going to happen every single year, or you can always ask your lecturer what is going to be happening in the next lecture so that you can better prepare yourself. And the reason for this is it will allow you to go through your work multiple times before you've gone to your test. And how this works is you go through it once before the lecture, the second time would be during the lecture itself, the third time would be after the lecture just to review what you learned, the fourth and even the fifth time would be while you're preparing for a test. As a result, you can see you have multiple opportunities for you to repeat the work, and as a result you can reinforce it in your mind. The second advantage with this is that you are able to create very fundamental questions that you can get cleared up during your lecture instead of listening passively during the lecture. And this is the trap that most students face, is that they'll go into their lecture unprepared, they'll listen passively, the information goes in and out, and when they get home they are very confused about what is happening, and as a result they end up getting lost and they're not able to connect different information because they're ill prepared. And this is really helpful for students that are not audio learners or students that don't fully grasp the information while someone is talking. If you read the information before, you'll be able to follow through what the lecturer is saying, and you will not be as bored because you know what is happening and you can stay engaged. So after you've come from your lecture, you've probably had multiple lectures during the course of the day, and instead of jumping into the first lecture that you see on hand, you need to look at your calendar and your due dates that are coming up, and you need to do the work that is due first. As a result, you need to prioritize your work because you do not want to start with a work that's only due in about 2-3 weeks, and then you take out time from the work that is due in the next week or even the following week. So it is very important that when you're studying, you're prioritizing it according to when it's due or according to how long it's going to take you to study, because even if something might be further on, it might be very hard for you and require more time from you. So you need to prioritize it according to the due date and how much time you need to study that subject. So at this point, you've done your lecture, you've gone home, you've prioritized your to-do list according to how much time it requires you to study or when the due date is. The next step is for you to organize yourself. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that all the material that you're going to be using for your studying or for that lecture needs to be around. You can't still have someone who needs to send you a PowerPoint, or you still need to download stuff, etc., etc. You need to make sure that everything is around you so that the next step that I'm going to be discussing, it becomes easier and you take as little time as possible, because it can become very tedious and you don't want to be having other things that are delaying you. After you've organized your stuff and you've all your equipment in one place, it is time to review your work and summarize it. So reviewing is just pretty much reading through or just perusing through what you learned during the lecture, just to make sure that you understand everything that your lecturer was saying. It should take you 10 minutes because you are going to be summarizing things, and that'll be technically the fourth time that you'll be going through the work. So when you're perusing through your material, it's just for you to know how you're going to be summarizing everything, so that you can look at this PowerPoint for this textbook is going to give you this information and that sort of thing. It's just to give you a game plan of how you're going to summarize your notes. When you summarize your notes, it can happen in two forms. You can have the digital one or the handwritten one. I'm going to start with the digital one. The digital one, I personally believe it is the best, especially now with online learning. Everything is sent via PowerPoint or it's voice notes, etc. But everything technically is digital, so it is easier to make notes like that because you're just copying and pasting and it's not as tedious. But it might not work for someone who's an audio visual learner or a visual learner, because they need to see what they're writing and that sort of thing. But there are ways that you can combat them by using colors, by using certain platforms that allow you to put annotations, etc., etc. But that might also take a bit of time, but I believe it's less strenuous and takes less time compared to the handwritten one. So for the past 2 years, I was doing handwritten notes, and I've got files and files and files of handwritten notes. At times, I would take shortcuts where I just print the PowerPoint and add extra notes to it. But what I've noticed with this is that it takes a long time, because having to recopy notes, your hand doesn't move as fast as you typing or copying and paste. So that was the biggest disadvantage that I had, or that you will have with handwritten notes, because it takes a long time. And another thing is, if you find more resources that you need to add to your notes, you cannot always go to that specific part, and as a result you have to add extra pages, or you have to add extra sticky notes and that sort of thing. So at times it did become very messy. That's why I've moved to the more digital part of it. If you like a bit of both, where the digital one takes less time but you still want to see it on paper, you can combine both, where you do your notes on a computer, you annotate it, etc, etc, but when you're studying, you can print it for someone who likes to see the paper physically and be able to write on it, etc, etc. So you can match the two so that you are saving time, but it's also working to your learning style. So with all of these, you can mix it up and make it work according to your learning style, because if you try to go against your learning style, it's going to affect you negatively, and you're not going to be studying as effectively. In addition to your notes, please make sure that you're adding pictures, you're adding color. This will just make it very bright, and it's easier to remember things that are in color than things that are black and white. And also, you better understand information if there's pictures added to it. In addition to color coding, you can use mnemonics and you can use cue cards, especially for things that are in lists. Especially in nursing, there's a lot of lists of your medications, illnesses, side effects, contraindications, and all of that. So there's a lot of lists. So cue cards will definitely save you, and mnemonics, just for you to be able to remember things easily. And then after you've summarized your notes, you can summarize them further should you wish. I think it is very useful. It does help, especially when it comes to your exams. And what I mean by summarizing further is you've consolidated all the information for that lecture from different sources, whether it's PowerPoint, a YouTube video, a textbook, your lecture, etc, etc. And then you summarize it further so that you only have the important parts. And I would say aim for one A4 sheet, or you can say one A3 size sheet should you wish, but on an A3 size, mind maps work way better than doing summary sheets. Please make sure that your study time is quality over quantity. You can study every day, but it's very passive. You're just reading the information, you're just highlighting. Yes, information will come in, but you'll not remember it for as long, because it wasn't quality studying. So quality studying is usually called active recall. And how this works is you dedicate a short amount of time and you break it up, or a long amount of time and you break it up, usually 25 minutes, but I'll speak about this later on when I'm speaking about the actual study experience. So active recall is you actively study, and this can vary greatly depending on the learning style that you have. So for me, active recalling is in the form of teaching. I will read the information, I make sure that I understand it, and then I'll ask myself questions, and I need to be able to teach it. I try to teach myself and explain the information in as much great detail and accuracy as I had studied. If I struggle with a certain point, that means I do not know it as well, and then I go back, I restudy it again, and must be able to teach myself. You can do this multiple times on different days to make sure that you grasp the information. The rule with this is, if you cannot teach someone the information that you are studying, you do not know it well enough. And this does not mean that if you're looking at your book and say, yeah, I know this, oh yeah, I know this, that does not count, because you know it because you're looking at it. You need to be able to recall it without looking at your paper. So if you cannot do that during your study sessions, it means they're not effective. Please avoid cramming. It does not help you in any way, shape, or form because it only sticks in your brain for a short period of time. And I can ask you a question right now from a trick you would not know because you crammed the information, you got it in, you regurgitated it on the paper, and you forgot about it. Especially now with us studying for very critical careers or careers where other innocent people are going to be involved, it is very important that we know our facts and we know our information. Especially as nurses or anyone in the medical field, you're going to be dealing with lives on your hands, and you do not want to be that person where you're like, well, I only learned 40% of the information on this, so I'm going to try it on you. Please make sure that you know your work so that you do not hurt your patients because of that. Another thing with your studying is you need to make sure that you are dedicating a specific time each and every single day to study. Do not try to do a massive study session once a week or 3 days before your test is. Do it slowly in small amounts every single day. Even if every single day you can only do 3 pages or you can only cover 2 topics out of 10, etc. Just do small amounts each and every single day and make sure that it is quality studying and you're not cramming and you know your information. It will really help you out in the long run. So as a result, you need to make sure that when you're scheduling your study sessions, it's well in advance before your test. Even if it's 2 weeks ahead or even 3 weeks, if you start slowly, it will not overwhelm you and you actually enjoy the study experience because it's not for a long time. Maximum an hour each day.